Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about that old and tired feminist and SJW phrase called manspreading. Manspreading has been a topic for years here on the channel, and it's been something the left has used to attack males repeatedly over and over again for many years now. It started about 2015, 2016 when they came up with the term, and basically manspreading was the claim that men spread their legs more when they sit down. You could be on a public bench, you could be on a train or a bus or something, and basically they'll call it manspreading because the man's taking up more room than he needs to, supposedly. Now, there's a lot of good explanation for this. We've debunked this theme many times before. Essentially, the problem comes up when you got to realize men are just bigger bodied creatures. We're all humans here, but girls tend to be smaller, men tend to be bigger, and on top of that, the way men sit is a wide spread way because guys have something between our legs. It's something there, and there's nothing to do about that, but if you have that there, you're going to want to sit a certain way. Now, we're not talking about any kind of exaggerated over-the-top sitting. I know sometimes they show pictures and images on these articles trying to blame us, trying to attack men, and that's not the way it usually is. This happens in both ways, actually, and men and women can take up more space in public, but manspreading is just a new term they use to attack us, and essentially, again, this is just anti-male stuff. This is just a way to attack dudes. Feminists, SJWs, liberals who press this stuff out there, they're the ones that are attacking us, and they just hate guys. They want to prop up women and also take down the dudes, and that's what manspreading is. It's just a new term. It's like a new diss term. They're coming up with this slur to attack dudes, and it's based on false information, and it's just very surprising that it's still going around to this day. I do think this is almost beating the dead horse here covering it, but since the left keeps bringing these stories up and it keeps coming into the news, we have to keep beating it down. Otherwise, they're going to just keep rolling and rolling over and never going to give up, and they're going to act like these debunks never happened when really they did. We've debunked this idea many times, but there is a new spin on this new article. It has to do with running for some reason. Apparently, a lot of people have been running and try to work out, and I think this has to do with the lockdowns too during this current health crisis, and the claim is that men are spreading more while running, which doesn't really make sense either, and it just goes back to the idea that men just tend to have larger frames. Men tend to be bigger dudes. We have bigger bone structures. We grow muscle more. We do bigger, harder jobs. So guys are just bigger, girls are smaller, and there's nothing wrong with that either. There's nothing wrong with these differences. There's lots of other differences between males and females. And of course, it's not all either. There's plenty of small guys out there and big girls out there. This is just an average thing, and that's why it comes up so much. And that's what really explains and debunks this whole theory. But with all that said, let's go ahead and jump right into the article. It's called "Manspreading Has Crossed Over to the Realm of Running and It's Not Okay." Okay, great start here. Actually, terrible start. I just love the way it's just so stereotypical. I guess that's to be expected from somewhere like The Independent, which is a terrible British outlet. And the subtitle says, "Taking up space in the world seems hardwired for men, but right now it reeks of selfishness," says Helen Coffey. Now, this is another argument, reminds me of another topic and video we've discussed repeatedly. It's just the idea that women don't want men to exist. They want you to just disappear. You can't even take up space, and they're just trying to go after us and saying, oh, we're selfish for taking up a space on a bus or something, like taking up a seat in a car or going to the store and standing in line. Like, they just look at you and they're like, hey, you, get out of here. You're a dude. You're not valid. You need to disappear and give up your space to a woman or minority. And really, it's funny and kind of ironic the way they go about this, because they point at men and say, hey, you're selfish, you're taking up space, get out of here. But really, when you see someone do that over and over again, and you see these feminists go after males like this and give us no credit and just be these total negative Nancys, and it just shows their sexism. They act like we're being sexist, like we're dog whistling sexism, we're secretly sexist, but really they're the ones overtly saying, hey, you're a male, get out of here, I don't want to ever see you again. And it just kind of exposes them as the bigots. With that said, let's read in here and see where else this goes. Something has been at me during my mandated daily exercise during lockdown. It's a realization that's crept up on me day by day. The same realization that the person who first coined the term manspreading must have experienced when it gradually hit them that men everywhere were taking up an inordinate amount of space in public transport. that can be translated to they're taking up any space, and these guys just don't want you there they don't want you to exist. A global pandemic that's put the kibosh on using the tube and train for the majority of us should really have pressed pause on the phenomenon. After all, where is there to manspread now? Your kitchen table? Your own sofa? But then I started going running again and realized the practice has not stopped at all, merely migrated. For those of us not blessed with a rural setting, outdoor exercise can feel like a minefield during quarantine. I can't embark on a 30-minute circular jog from my front door without crossing paths with at least 50 people. I live in London's Zone 1, and this seemingly is my punishment for not getting the hell out of Dodge when all my contemporaries started moving to the burbs several years ago. Okay, so this is again her justifying and making excuses for a life decision. She chose to live in the city. She chose this certain workout where she needs to run outside and pass by people. This has become problematic during this health scare. This is the health problem that's kind of influencing this article. There's a pandemic. People need to exercise still, and the running option has become one. But if you're in a city, it doesn't make a lot of sense because you're going to have to run by people. Who knows if someone could cough or sneeze while you're running by, God forbid. And even if you're protected, there's just so many odds there. There's so many people running by you. Like every single person, you're risking being infected by every single person they run by. So it makes sense that this is a kind of questionable practice. But I say don't blame the men. It's not men's fault that they're existing and choosing to run too. The men and women are both choosing to take this risk. I don't even think the body size makes the biggest influence here. I mean, sure, there's going to be girls that are more average to be like 5 foot, 5'5", and some guys are more average to be 6 foot, and there's some guys that are going to be bigger too. But those people running, it's not that big of a difference. If you see like, you know, one person this big, one person this big, they're running, but relatively you're still running by each other on this sidewalk or street or in the park or wherever. So I don't see the big difference between the guys being a little bit bigger, girls being a little bit smaller. I could see if you're really, really crowded and you're going shoulder to shoulder and you're in some kind of marathon situation, but you shouldn't be like that for the first place. And then also, if you need to be worried this much, you should just avoid running. Work out in your apartment. Come up with something else. There's lots of other things you could do. You could get a stationary bike for like $100 or $200. I think $150, maybe. You could get the cheap one. It's not the best, but if that's what you're worried about, you get that in your apartment and then you don't have to leave. Or come up with something else. Walk up and down the stairs somewhere. Avoid people more. But don't blame men. Don't be a sexist anti-male hater like this article's writer. It taints the activity with an unwanted wash of anxiety. What if I get it? What if I already have it and I'm unknowingly passing it on? Even before the outbreak, there was an unspoken code of conduct I instinctively followed when running, especially somewhere with limited space like the canal path that forms part of my regular route. An innate considerateness took over. Pausing to let people pass on bikes, saying thank you to those who paused to let me pass, keeping to one side of the path, all things came naturally. Since lockdown started, this code has simply intensified. I attempt to make myself physically smaller, squeezing in the very edge of the trail, refraining from breathing as I pass people. That's right, I literally stopped breathing. Some part of my brain took the decision to hold my breath when others cross my path, and I do it, not consciously, but instinctively. I'm not saying this for a pat on the back or to raise awareness or what a great person I am, although I would be nice to get some recognition for a change. Where's my bloody medal, huh? Okay, so this person is virtue signaling, but they're joking about virtue signaling, so they think it's okay since they call themselves out, even though they're still doing it. It's not negating their terrible practice. It's more than just an observation about our natural behavior. I unconsciously adapt mine to fit a scenario in which social distancing was required but difficult to observe. I wouldn't have even been aware of it had it not been for the discrepancy between my own response and that of others. And when I say others, I mean men. Okay, now she turns to men. And I just don't understand the male angle because men are a little bit bigger. It's bothering more. I think the real problem is there's lots of people around in the city and you're running around London and you're in a major city that needs to be kind of spaced out more, and the running honestly is a little unnecessary. I know people need exercise and that can help your body and get you healthy, but there's plenty of other exercises, or you could just skip your runs for a little while. It's not going to be the end of the world if you don't run for a few weeks. I know some people are more obsessed with exercise and other people think it's 100% needed. Other people think, you know, it's more of an extraneous activity. That's a whole other debate. But the point is, this person is choosing to run in a public city in a big crowded city like London, and because they see a lot of people running around too, they're blaming it on men. And this is just a classic leftist tactic. Women think this way a lot because every single problem to them is to be blamed on men. If something goes wrong, if things are crowded, if things are broken, if there's this or that, they'll find a way to do it no matter what. And this just goes to show it very, very well. Yes, I know, hashtag not all men, but hashtag a considerable number of men. And definitely hashtag not women. All the female joggers I pass seem to be doing the same unthinking contortions as me. We have more practice, I suppose, at making ourselves small and non-threatening and unnoticeable. We have form when it comes to bending over backwards to make everyone else in the room feel comfortable, often at the expense of our own comfort. Okay, wow. So she's saying not all men, which is just a kind of token her saying it just to say it, but I think she might actually believe it because she even says a considerable number of men. And then she dares to say not women, like there's never been a woman who hasn't been in someone else's space, who hasn't respected the rules. I highly doubt that. And this comes back to another theme. This is just a classic women's tactic that these leftists like to blame men for everything. And SJWs will never say women did anything wrong. Women are perfect in their minds, even though that's far from the case. Another issue that this reminds me of is this whole manspreading idea. The name of it, it kind of implies that women don't do it, and they do. Believe me, if you go back to the beginnings of manspreading, women spreading is a thing as well. They spread their bags in chairs, for example. We can see pictures of women laying down on the bus, taking up extra seats with all kinds of stuff they're shopping with. You know, it happens that way too, but the SJWs and the feminists want to pretend that doesn't happen because they want to blame everything on men, like this running bit. But it is striking how many men do the opposite. They choose to plant themselves instead in the middle of the path, arms and legs pumping, striding flat out. They make no allowances, no exceptions, seemingly unaware that the person they're approaching is doing a frantic parody of Viennese waltz to try and adhere to the, under such circumstances, impossible 2-meter rule. It's no concern of theirs. They pick their lane and they're going to stick to it. That thanks very much. Wide leg stances and unwavering trajectory, as if following invisible tram lines, sending the clear message. This space is mine, I dominate. Better give me some room, love. All others must leap out of the way, grateful for the small toehold they've been granted. Okay, well, I think I could sense a little bit of jealousy here. I think the point of manspreading and a point of attacking people for this is women are jealous of men's confidence, the confidence and the brazenness to kind of own your own space, to exist, to be free and not be afraid of everyone and worried about how everyone looks and thinks about you. That's one of the premises here. Make no mistake. Girls are constantly overthinking. Now, this is going to sound like a generalization, but this is a generalization more like to the feminist girls who are overthinking things and also just kind of always worried how they look. Oh, I don't want to take up too much space. I don't want to seem racist. I don't want to seem sexist. And that's a real problem in today's world, but it's because of them, and it's what we should be not doing. They should be more confident and more take up space if they want to, but they're instead trying to tear down the men who naturally do that usually. They're just naturally taking up space. I exist. I want to be here. I want to run and run in my lane. And I've noticed that before too. I know what she's saying, but really it's not the men's fault. It's not because men are terrible people. We're not doing anything wrong. You're just jealous that you're not as confident to pull this off. And also you're just jealous in general. I don't know. You hate men. You have this secret fear of us. You don't understand us, and it's really sad to see, especially in 2020 when you think you're past a lot of bad feminist ideas like manspreading, but even to this day it gets brought up, this time for running, in one of the most ridiculous ideas possible. Well, that about wraps up today's video. Make sure you guys comment your thoughts on everything below. I want to hear what you think about manspreading, about running, about lockdowns, and all that good stuff. Comment that below, and thanks again for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video, and we'll see y'all next time.